Hi, everybody. Daiho here. I'm doing a live thing. Uh, we're going to talk about art, I think, Zen practice art, so to speak. Or, well, I should say, um, Zen is one of the art is one of the eight gates of Zen, according to Daido Roshi in his Eight Gates book. I think art is a marvelous way of expressing oneself, of course, um, capturing something from the inside out, if you will. Um, I read a note on my Facebook page from someone I know, and he was saying how he thought that Americans, and one of the problems we have is that we kind of cleave toward the Japanese or the Asian perspectives of things, and we sort of mimic them, I guess. And I suppose there's something to that. When we talk about sumie, which is ink painting in the Japanese, uh, we're talking about a Japanese art form and a Chinese art form. But that doesn't mean that it can't be something that we make of our own. Uh, and I think that each artist, regardless of what form or media they use, each artist um, creates something of him or herself in the practice of the art. Uh, I don't care whether we call it American, Japanese, Chinese, Bulgarian. I mean, it really doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is it authentic? Is it something that is practiced? Is it something that's disciplined? And yet, at the same time, pushes the boundaries, the limits of convention, if you will, and creates something new that brings the viewer into the art. One of the wonderful things I think about sumie is it's often incomplete. There's a lot of negative space framed around positive space, or positive space framed around negative space, and so the viewer must bring his or her imagination into the work and create something new and different. It's kind of like when you read a book. I've got over here somewhere a copy of the uh, Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance by Robert Pirsig. Now, I've had that book for probably 30 years. I think I got it right after it was published. I don't remember when it was published, but it was quite a while back. And I read that book maybe once every 2 years or so. And every time I read it, it speaks a different language to me. And I think that's partly because I've evolved as a person. I bring my own experiences into the text, and so it becomes uh, like a collegial relationship between the author and the reader. The same, I think, applies to artwork. The viewer of the art becomes part of the picture, part of the statue, part of the paper, part of the canvas, whatever the case may be. Um, and to the extent that the artist is able to um, leave enough out to evoke that invitation to join the art, is to the extent I think that the artist is successful. Um, but that's just my point of view. Okay, let's get on to a little bit of sumie kind of artwork. But first, I want to light a stick of incense and kind of bring ourselves into the moment here. We have a nice little stick of temple incense, and I will place it on my incense holder next to my candle. And there we go. Okay, now, sumie is ink painting, as I said. We use a inkstone like this. I have a little water I put in that to get it ready to be used. Sometimes we use little trays, little dishes like this, and that allows us to create washes of various hues. Um, We have brushes. This is a nice brush here. This brush is imported from China. I have several of these different sizes, and it is typically they're composed of wolf hair, and they're very, very flexible and very soft. So you have to be very careful with the pressure you apply to the brush onto the paper to get the desired line that you want. Now we have an ink stone, as I said, and we now have an ink stick. This is an ink stick box. It's a new ink stick. I'm gonna open it up here, and I'll show you what an ink stick looks like. So in Simier, we make our own ink. Now that's the traditional way. One of the issues is that this can take a long time to do. If you're making a big painting, it might be a good idea to purchase some pre-made ink like this. You can buy that on Amazon, and it's a pre-mixed ink. But I prefer, in most cases, I prefer to make my own ink. And what you do with that, to do that, is you put some water on your ink stone, and then you apply pressure to a beveled edge, create a beveled edge on the stick, and you simply grind. Now, this may seem like a chore, but actually it's a kind of contemplative practice in itself, because you have to feel this stick on the stone and get a sense of how much pressure to apply and so forth. It's an evolving practice, if you will. So there's two phases to this. One is to take the pigment off the stick put it on the stone, and the other is to take a brush and mix it. And the thing about mixing it is that the more you mix it, the dark or the thicker the water becomes by integrating with the pigment, the darker it is. So depending on how dark you want your ink, you grind it so much like this. Now I'll dry this off the edge because I don't want it to get soft and gooey and moldy and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to now set this ink stick aside, and we'll pick up a brush. Let's use the big fat brush. Now you never use a brush without first wetting it. So I'm going to put this in a little jar of water I have here, and take some of that water off the brush. We don't need that much water on it. Now I'm going to mix this paint or ink. What I do here is I simply turn in circles, sometimes back and forth. I manipulate the water and the pigment so that it comes together to form ink. Now, depending, again, like I said, depending on how dark you want it, will depend on how much mixing you do, how much water is there versus pigment, and so on. So I've got a nice little puddle of ink here. Let's see what it looks like. I'm going to take some of that ink off the brush. We don't need that much water on the paper. So what I'm going to do now, I think, is move the camera down so you can see the paper. Let me bring that down there like that. That should do it, I hope. Back it up, maybe. Back up the computer a little bit. This is a work in progress. I've got to figure out a better way to do this work for you. I'm going to turn this a little bit and then bring it around and then down. Whoa, don't want to drop it off the tripod. I know this is a little bit of a pain here, but let's see what we can do. It's kind of funny working this. Okay, now let me move this other paper out of the way. We'll get to that in a minute. Let's see if I can bring this out, I think, right? Bring it out. Move this over a little bit. Oh, there's my paper. Okay, good. Now we got it. I think we got it anyway. Close. Okay, now you can see the paper, and you can see all the other little stuff I have here in my artistic cubbyhole. I'm going to put a line on here just to see how dark the ink is, but we won't waste it. So let's see. How about if I make a little flower? We'll start here, and I use my little finger as a guide to help me gauge the pressure I wanted to put on the brush and paper. I'll bring it up. Oh, see, that's a nice gray. Bring that up like that, and maybe we'll make a little piece that comes down, and it comes down this way. Okay, so we now have a little flower. Let's set this aside for a moment, this brush, and we'll take a different brush. Let me see, I'll try this brush. This is a smaller brush, as you can see. It's not so fat. We'll wet it, and I'm going to first, I should wet it there and let that soak in. I'm going to take this ink stick, and I'm going to apply more pressure to the ink stone with the water on it, and grind some more and make this ink a little darker. Okay, we'll do that just a little bit, not too much. Dry it off, set it over here, take my brush and mix it some. Okay, we're getting there. Now let's see whether this made it any darker or not. We're going to make a stem now. We'll start here and come down like this. Oh yeah, see, that's much darker. All right, like that. Now we can make a leaf coming off the stem. Like that. And maybe one over here, coming up from a slightly different direction. Fold and come down. There you go. Now this flower needs some stamens, so I think we'll switch brushes again. Go to a smaller brush, wet it, and dry it just a little bit. Pick up a little ink on the tip of this, not too much. And right here, make a few stamens, which would be light brush strokes. A couple dots out here, like that. And we might want to, we have dark tips here. Let's put a little darkness in here. Darkness in here. Now, while this is wet, I'm going to take my finger and slide it a little bit this way. Put a little more ink in that spot and bring it up there, like that. Okay. Now we might put a shadow right here where this petal is coming over the other petal. There. Okay, so now we have a little flower. I think you can see that pretty well. So once this picture, painting, whatever we're going to call it, this little practice piece is done, I'm going to put my chop on it. Chop is a seal that certifies that it's like a signature, but it's more like a seal. And my chop says, So Dai Ho. So means monk or priest, Dai means great, and Ho means Dharma. So my official name is So Dai Ho, priest, great Dharma. I was not happy when my teacher named me that because I think, how am I going to be that? Be great Dharma? I don't know. It was something I had to live up to somehow, or at least I felt I did. So I have a fountain pen here. And with fountain pens, of course, you have to get them started. So we're going to wet this a little bit and tighten it up. There, that should work. And then here I'm going to put Daiho. And the month is February. 21 is the year. Okay. So now that makes a little picture. I'll take that off and turn it around so you can see it. How's that? Little kind of funny looking flower, but as that TV artist used to say, happy accidents. We'll put it over here for later. Okay, now one thing I didn't talk about earlier was paper. This is 60-pound multimedia paper, which means it can you can use wet media or dry media on it. You can use ink, watercolor, chalk, charcoal, pen and ink, all kinds of things, and it'll maintain its form. If you use a paper that's designed simply for dry media and you put wet media on it, it'll wrinkle and do not so good things, unless that's what you want it to do, in which case then by all means do it. Now, a lot of the traditional sumi-e painters use rice paper. I'll show you what that looks like here. This is specialty calligraphy paper. It's imported from Japan. I'll set that aside. The paper itself is very thin and absorbent. So you have to be careful when you use this. I like to put some newsprint or some felt or something underneath this paper so that when you paint on it, it'll bleed through and come onto the paper that's underneath it. But in this case, I'm going to simply leave it as it is. What I'll do is clip this on my little art clipboard here. And then I have a metal thing, like a weight, that one of my students gave me. He painted it and gave it to me. And what I'm going to do with this is put it on the paper and then draw it down. And as I draw it down, it will take any wrinkles that are in that paper out and hold it down for me so it doesn't move when I apply pressure with the brush. Okay, so now we're here. We have our rice paper. And let's try maybe an enso. You know, an enso it's a Zen circle. It symbolizes a lot of things, but one thing it symbolizes is emptiness, a kind of complete life cycle. And what I've heard, I don't know, I doubt that it's true, but what I've heard is that you can tell something about the master by the enso that he or she is able to paint. Now, ensos are a little difficult because you're supposed to use your whole arm when you do it. That allows, or that means that you better have some pretty good control over the brush and your arm so that the circle is not egg-shaped or rectangular, but in fact a true circle. So now I'm going to take this brush, I've just put ink on it as you saw, and I'm going to think about this, and well, maybe thinking is the wrong word. I'm going to contemplate. Focus my attention on the paper and the brush in my hand. What I want to do is execute a circle in one stroke with no hesitation. So that means I have to be pretty much present when I do that and be absolutely ready before I engage the paper with the brush. Once you begin, you don't stop. You simply go in the circle. So let me think about this or look at this paper for a minute, contemplate the paper and the brush and the ink, and we'll just make ourselves an enso here. There you have an enso. Now, whether that's good or bad, I'm not going to say. I'm not qualified to answer that question since I'm the person who executed it, but it's reasonable, I guess. Now, I want to show you what happens, though, to the rice paper with the ink on it. I'll put that down, and we'll slip this out of the clip. It wasn't exactly a full boat of ink, but there's the enso. And here is the enso's shadow. that came out underneath that piece of rice paper. So let's slide that back in, and we'll do something with it. I'll put it in there. There we go. Okay. So now, but we have to first finish this. So what I'm going to do is sign this with my chalk and put my actual signature on it, because we're Americans here and we don't speak Japanese or Chinese or Sino-Japanese, whatever we're going to call this. So I'm going to simply put here Daiho 221. And set that aside. Now we have our, and so, okay, by the way, anything that I paint is always for sale. If somebody wants this, they just have to send me $5 and I will mail it to them, or any other piece of art I do here during these things. Okay, so we have this shadow. And what are we going to do with the shadow? I don't know, but we're going to figure something out. So let me see here. Let me take a different brush, and I have a little red in a pool, in a saucer here, and it's got a little ink mixed with it, a black ink mixed with it. I'm going to tap this a little bit and bring up some of that color. And let's see, this is a more or less a dry brush. As you can see, it doesn't have much ink on it. So let's see what we can do with that circle. What do you think? Well, let me see here. Okay, put a little few strokes there. I'm going to rinse this out, and we're going to turn that into something. I think dry that a little bit and lay it down. Now I want to use different media now. I'm going to take this inkwell and a quill tip pen. And quill tip pens may or may not do well on rice paper. We're going to experiment though. So I'm going to dip this in the ink that's inside the well there, and make a couple little lines here. This down. Hope you can see what I'm doing. Kind of a little like outlining, but not really. Put a little eye here. Okay. We have maybe a wolf or a fox baying at the silhouette sort of thing of the moon, which maybe it's a moon, maybe not. I don't know. I'm not sure what that is, but this is very faint, and that's fine. That's fine, but we can bring a little bit of texture to it, a little bit of fullness to it here by bringing a little outline around here, maybe all around here. Remember I said about positive, negative space. What I'm doing here is creating a piece that you have to fill in the blanks with. Okay, now we've got a few blanks here, so let's leave that. We'll put this, I'm going to rinse it out and put this back, and then put this on, and take the ink well and put it back over here. Okay, now, remember I said we had these washes that you can do? They're very varying shades, so to speak, or hues. I guess it's hues or shades. I don't know, whichever. And we can do something with the foreground here a little bit. So I think I'll take the bigger brush and dry that a little bit. And we use a kind of dry brush technique here. We have a dry brush, and I'm going to put that up against this here so I can move this brush across a little bit. And bring it down this way. Okay. All right. Now, take this brush, add a little more ink to it, just on one tip of it. And I'm going to push this up like this. Push it up. And just with a dry brush, bring these leaves down, these stems. And we're going to make a pine tree here, like that. People sometimes make a mistake. They think that all they have to do is bring the branches down on each side, but pine trees are round. And so you have to have some leaves that are coming down in the center, straight down, as well as the ones that come across the base. So we have that. Now, this is going to cast a shadow. And remember, I have a little shadow here. So we're going to make a little shadow this way, like that, and bring it under the tree. Like this. Okay. There. Okay. Now, one thing I want to do to complete this is something that I put in most of my landscapes that I paint. And for that, we're going to use an even smaller brush, tiny little guy here. It's a bitty brush. Wet that. Okay, now I'm going to dip it in this ink, the darker ink that's on the inkstone that we made. And over here, without getting my arm in it, we'll bring this down like this, and it's like this, or darker, and here, and here. Now we have two birds, a pair of birds, flying, and our pine tree and our dog. Okay, or a wolf, whatever it is. He's pink. Pink Panther. All right. Now let's put the top on it. This is very elementary sort of thing. We're not doing anything complicated here. Just a little bit of ink with a couple of different brushes, and some imagination of sorts. Okay, now I'm going to sign this. Come on, get out there, ink. Daiho 221. All right. So there you have it. Let me pull this off so you can see it better, and then we'll say goodnight. There you go. Can you see that? I'm not sure you can see the birds. They're right under my finger, right there. Okay. There you have it. A little thing that's done with the residue of making the enso. Now, what I might think about doing sometime is maybe overlaying this, or maybe the other way. No, this way. Overlaying this. And we can set it up to the light and see through it. I don't know. Anyway, there you have it. Well, thank you very much for joining me this evening, or whenever it is that you're joining me, as this is posted on my YouTube channel. I hope if I can figure out how to do that. Let me bring this up so we can see each other a little bit here, or I can see or you can see me. Okay. I hope this was fun, entertaining, and maybe even educational a little bit. I would love to see your work. If you have some work and you'd like to share it, please share it with me. My email address is daihoroshi@gmail.com or harveyhilbert@yahoo.com. Real simple. Thank you again, and be well. Now let me figure out how to end this. So we can end the stream here. Click, end stream. All right.